All right, we are back at Under the Sun and the Art and Science of Coaching with Coach Tim Hall and my co-host, Zach Gregg. Zach, you ready to get after it once again?
Sure am. Yeah, excited to be back here.
All right, so we had a little bit of a break. You and I have um, had our hands full with some other things the last couple of weeks, but that has given us time to come up with a couple of topics that are relevant and timely that we're going to talk about today. And it's two things that we are experiencing as coaches as well as athletes, you in particular. And so what we're going to talk about today is first, I want to explore why is performance testing important? Why testing our fitness, so to speak, at any given point all throughout the season, why that's important. We're also going to talk about, and we're going to do that from a coaching standpoint, from an athlete standpoint, why it's good and helpful and the upside, but also from the athlete standpoint, how to approach it mentally before, during, and after. And then the second question we're going to tackle is, here we are, we're in early 2021. There are races happening. Zach, you've already got one under your belt. And so we're going to talk about what early season races can teach us, why they're important, why they're valuable, how to approach them, and especially so as an athlete, how we as coaches can help athletes be best prepared for them and how to manage it. And then for athletes, also how to approach that mentally. What preparations mentally do you need to do during and after? And so those are the two topics today. And we want to not just talk about the application of those things, but also just the mindset and the mentality that goes along with it. I think that's important as we move forward. With all this stuff that you and I talk about is that we incorporate the mind into all of this because it's a key element to our success and our development as athletes. So, okay, Zach, you have that background in the lab and performance testing, and from your standpoint as an exercise science person, why is performance testing important?
Right. So I guess we have to kind of back up. Let's define performance testing. And because we're always trying to take a snapshot in order to test our progress, right? So to see where we're at in the moment, we have to think back to what we've done and how we've gotten there. So performance testing can be something like a FTP test, which is an estimation of your FTP. We don't need to go into that. Which those include 2x8 minute tests, a 20-minute test, a ramp test, or an hour of power. We could be doing performance testing on your max sprint, your 1-minute power, all these different things, right? Your ability to hold a specific wattage for X amount of time. So we performance test in order to see where we're at in the moment, in order to either accept or deny our hypothesis that we've been applying on our athlete up to that point. So that I think it's important to put it in context, because there has to be a reason you're doing the testing, and you have to be able to pay attention to the results of that test and apply it. Otherwise, you're just doing a 2x8 minute effort or a 20-minute effort, something like that. So performance testing implies you're actually going to do something with the data. And I think that's a really important distinction. And I think a lot of athletes get that, right? They're not going to go out there and do an all out effort and then not oogle over the watts or the heart rate or the speed, right? So yeah, and how that applies from a scientific perspective is we don't know how the human body is going to react in specific terms, because we are dealing with individuals, and everything, even within a large group, is an N equals 1 study. every single person reacts differently to the training stimulus. And so we have to understand that reaction. So the reason we performance check is to make sure that we're either moving in the direction that we want to move, or it gives us an idea of ways that we should change the prescription to correct whatever diversion from what we were expecting is going to happen. That makes sense?
It does make sense. And it's, from a coach perspective, you've heard me talk about this with our athletes, and you and I having discussions, is um, it's not something I personally like to do myself. I don't
Right.
enjoy it. A lot of athletes do really enjoy these things, and as you said, there's so many different types of uh, tests that you can perform, and it's going to depend upon the kind of athlete they are as to the test that you would do with them. But at any given point, it lets you know where they are in their strength, their fitness, and it varies all throughout the year. And as a coach, for me, I've always come at it from the standpoint of uh, I really don't care what the numbers turn out to be. I just would like to be working with the truth in that moment in time so that I am helping them through the prescription of workouts, that they're in the right mix of zones, be it heart rate or power, and that we're not pushing them too hard and overreaching, or you'd say overtraining or overexerting them, and that we're not also undertraining. That we're finding that sweet spot in the middle of where they're actually at in that moment. Because where you are in November is going to be different than where you are right now in, say, February or March, which is going to look different than when you are in June or July, depending on the sport and discipline that you're in. So knowing exactly what you're capable of at any given time helps coaches with the prescription of the workouts that you're going to be doing and pointing you in that right direction. And without it, I say this to our athletes all the time, is I can come up with a pretty good prescription. It's not going to be specific in the manner that it needs to be, but if we're not testing at all, then you're throwing darts at a board. You're throwing darts at a board, and
Right.
you think you're in a particular area, but that isn't always the case. So doing the testing, I think, is an important piece, and it's a good workout, whatever it is that you're having them do. As an athlete, it's a good workout. And I've told you this, and I think you've probably experienced it as well, is that it's rare for someone to do any kind of performance testing and for them to not say afterward, I could have done better. I know I could have, I could have done
Right.
more, 10 more watts or 15 more watts, and I've got more in me. They're dissatisfied. They're not content with, which is a good thing, I think. I think it's a good thing that you get done with the test and you're like, oh. But like I said, who you are in March is not who you were in November, and who you are in March is not who you're going to be in June. So you can't apply your best mindset at your highest peak to all these different points in time.
Yeah, totally. And that's one of the fun things about performance testing, right? Is it is a snapshot, and there's so many factors that affect how you're going to do on that day, where it could be something bike related and training related, or in kind of a frustrating sense, it could be the amount of sleep you get, what your significant other was, involved in, whether you had to go and help them move house or whatever it is, and you're fatigued from that. So I think assuming and understanding that performance testing is a snapshot is kind of a trick for athletes, right? Because they want to overachieve always, and nobody's ever happy with that number, except maybe some of the new folks who don't understand how hard that test is, and then they just blow it out of the water, and they surprise themselves, and then they're stoked for a couple weeks until they see the power chart where it's like, I'm not Chris Froome or whatever. And then they get all upset and they join the club of people who are just perpetually dissatisfied with their performance.
Yeah,
But
well,
yeah,
when
there
when
is
you
kind of
don't
a
have
bell curve to it, right?
when we don't test to or perform any sort of performance test the way that we would like to, I always flip it and say, but look at how much room you have to grow. If you'd have hit a grand
Right.
slam right
Yeah.
now, where are we going to go with this? Do you think that there's an extra 5 or 10% above this magic high number? Sometimes there is, but okay. So yeah, we're not going to get into all the different types of tests because that's been talked about and debated about and spoken about in many other podcasts from other people who have more intense thoughts about it. So let's say, all right, you and I have been doing this a lot lately. So we perform these tests and we have the athlete go through these protocols, and sometimes it's multi-day, sometimes it's just one day. Once those are over, how do you then use that information? What do you take from those numbers, and what does it allow for you to do and help you prescribe those workouts? How do you use that information?
Right. So, yeah, one of the benefits of having all this data stored in the same spot is you can look back historically at how these numbers compare. And then there's also on the coaching side, what was your expectation of their performance based on what their trainings looked like, what they've done in past years. And it gives you it gives you a snapshot of where they are. Not only based on that number, but also, I think the post-workout comments and the discussion that you can have uh, from a performance test is also really valuable to understand where they perceive themselves, right? Because that a lot plays into that, right? So if they totally crushed it and they're really excited about the number, it shows you that you're probably on the right track, or maybe you're a little bit ahead, depending on what your expectation was of the athlete and the time of year. And if they were disappointed with it, or it matches a historical number from the same time a year ago or 2 years ago or something, then you're either on track or you need to make some adjustments. And a lot of those adjustments come from what people actually tell you, not necessarily the number, right? Because they're going to swear that it's actually 10 watts higher, or that they could have gone longer, but they just couldn't go any harder, or things like that, where that's actually good feedback. Where if you do a 20-minute test, and you're like, man, I couldn't do 5 watts more, but I could do it for another 10 minutes. That actually tells you at a certain time of year, you're in a really good spot, or you need to move on and do something different. So yeah, I think as much as it is like super nice to have that number to compare, year over year, month over month, whatever it is, where you're at, those conversations actually glean a lot from a coaching perspective as to what the status is. How is it going?
Yeah, it's a
What about
benchmark.
you?
Yeah, it's a benchmark. Uh,
Hmm.
and it certainly is helpful if you're able to work with an athlete for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, so that you have that data and you can look back and reflect. You've been a part of their development over the course of that time, and you can show them, hey, yeah, maybe you're not as thrilled with this number today, but look at what you did 2 years ago at this same time. You're well ahead of what was normal before. Uh, more specifically, those numbers that come from the test, be it wattage, heart rate, we're going to take that information, and depending upon the test that they do, we're going to use those numbers to then prescribe the training zones that we would like to use from that moment forward, because these zones are going to change throughout the year. Your training zones,
Hmm.
your heart rate is maybe going to vary very little over the course of the year, but the power zones are likely to hopefully, if the prescription is going well, those zones are going to change quite a bit. And then you'll find just day to day how you feel, what your body's giving you on any given day, that's going to fluctuate. So from the heart rate info and the power numbers, and we're creating these zones, really, Zach, how is that helping us to help the athlete when we can drill down and offer the, zone one? What is the difference between zone one, zone two, zone three, zone four, and on and on? Why having that knowledge and being able to give it to the athlete is valuable, so that when they are out there riding, that it's useful and applicable, and having them on the right path.
Yeah, right. It's always useful to define those zones as clearly as possible so that the athlete understands and can maintain the power that you're looking for to achieve the adaptation that you're trying to get. Um, so yeah, it's very important to take that test data and apply it as, this is where the athlete is now. And whether that's, they set a new estimated threshold, or it redefines what their endurance zone is, things like that. Like, you need to move forward and be proactive and make sure that they understand that these are the new numbers, this is the new range. Because it's going to impact the amount of adaptation they can get, um, and how closely they're going to be able to follow your idealized training plan. Um, yeah, you need the accuracy, because if their zones are all messed up, then the next time you test, uh, you're going to be like, whoa, that's different than what I expected, and it all goes back to not having a clear idea of what that physiology actually is in that moment.
Well, and as cyclists in general, we're all a little guilty of riding too hard too often, and
Yeah.
without that specificity of the zones that we know that we're supposed to be in or should be in at any given point throughout the year, uh, you're not going to achieve those adaptations you want. And yeah, we all want to be strong and fast and fit year round, but there's a moment, and there's a timeline that we would want to follow, because this is going to feed into what we're going to talk about here soon about just early season races. We can't be at peak fitness all year long. You can maintain a certain level of endurance and strength all throughout the year, but peak fitness that's an art to get to that point. And so helping people understand that there is a moment to ride specifically in endurance for this period of season for so much, or there's a time for steady state threshold training, there's a time for VO2 training, and it's not year round necessarily. And so helping athletes to be doing the right type of training all throughout the year is important, and having the knowledge of where they're at through performance testing really helps keep have the blinders on, so to speak, so that you're just doing the right thing at the right time. Which is something, we can get to this in a minute. I was thinking that I was with you the day that we went out and you did a performance test. And we could maybe even throw in just,
Right.
For yourself, what that was like, and what you went through, and then the subsequent conversations you had with your coach. But, the point being that performance testing throughout the season is important, and especially early season, when you're in the early part of your base phase, getting into the build phase. It's some coaches like to test more frequently than others. It could be every 6 to 8 weeks. I try to myself, I don't know what I try to keep it maybe every 2 months, maybe a little longer, depending upon where you're at in the race season. And then you can use a lot of race information, because that's the real truth. This is what you can do in a race situation. But you don't want to lean on that too heavily, because we're always going to outperform ourselves in race situations. So it is something to do all throughout the year, and recalibrate those numbers at wherever you're at in that moment, just again, so that you're not overtraining or undertraining at any given moment, and you're right where you need to be. And so as an athlete, though, there's how we use it as a coach, and why it's important, because it's going to help us prescribe better, more specific workouts throughout the season. But when you're an athlete, and whether you've done this many times or you're doing it for the first time, man, mentally, I remember my first time of doing a power test. It was
Yeah.
it was prescribed to me from Todd Nordemeyer. We've had him on here talking about bike fitting, and I had no idea what I was doing at the time. Is I had a rear hub power tap wheel, which were very common back in the day. Um, and then I just remember doing subsequent tests after that, and just the progression. And for me personally, it was a motivating thing, even though I always thought, man, I should be doing better than this. But as an athlete, Zach, what are some things that we should be thinking about before, during, and after that's going to help us to do it, number one, and two, process the experience and the information? Because sometimes, man, if you aren't careful as an athlete, it can send you on a spiral, not in a good way. It can put you in the other direction too.
Right.
But it can send you on a spiral downward if you don't process it the right way mentally.
Yeah, and no, my first power test was on a power tap rear hub that weighed about 5 pounds also. So yeah, I think you got a performance boost just because you're dragging that thing around, and then when you got your on your race wheels, you felt super fast. But yeah, from an athlete standpoint, I think there is a level of anxiety and expectation that is not necessarily correlated to what you're actually doing. Because all we're doing is taking a snapshot of whatever it is that you can do on that day. It doesn't define you as an athlete, and it doesn't really show what your potential is in any amount of time in the future. So I think with the onset of all of the free and accessible data and science that we've had in the last 10 years, power duration curve, watts per kilo, all these things that are readily available and we use, we have really ramped up the stress and expectation related to power testing or performance testing. And that's not necessarily good, especially, in December, January, February, when the racing, especially this year, is very far off. So of course, you're not going to do your best 20-minute power, but in the back of your mind, being, we're all fairly type A overachiever types who get into the sport and stay. We expect it to be better than ever every time. And that expectation can cause pre-test anxiety. It can cause you not to prepare and execute as well. Poor sleep on the night before. All these things that will end up interfering with what the actual data would have said if you would have just gone out there and done, for everybody 20 minutes as hard as you can. So yeah, I think athletes and coaches really need to work together and understand that there's no expectation to hit a certain target. It's more about a feeling of getting it all out, and pacing these things appropriately so that there isn't a sense of panic halfway through or anxiety or something that's going to stop you from finishing the test. And I think that's really important. So yeah, I think on my first couple, I think the first one I nailed because I had no idea what I was doing. And then the subsequent few, I got about 12, 14 minutes in doing way too much power, and had to flip and go home, because you just explode. So I think, yeah, a lot of that, it's very difficult for an athlete to execute without expectation, because that's what it's all about. It does the number itself doesn't matter, or it doesn't dictate your worth. It's just your number in that day, and you prep the days before, whatever it is, help determine that number. So if you are less anxious about it, then I think that helps a lot. So
Yeah, I think you,
have you ever sneak attacked an athlete with a power test? Have you ever given them 2 days off and then just told them to go out and do a 20-minute test on the
no,
day because it was so much?
I haven't. I probably
Oh,
have.
I've had to do it.
I should. I should probably have tried that, but I really I try to personally downplay the tests anyway. Just like, hey, this is don't
Hmm.
the number. I don't care. I really, honestly, this is the truth. I don't care about the numbers. Like whatever they are, they are. Like you
Yep.
can't change it. I can't change it. I will use the test as a teaching tool to say, hey, look at what you did. Forget about the numbers. Look at this graph. Look at how you went out to start out. Look at how stable your heart rate was throughout. Look at, you didn't have to, you went too hard, but then you didn't have to back off and recover for 3 minutes and then go hard again. I'll look for things within it, use it as a teaching tool for the moment about how they actually executed the effort, and help them to see how in future workouts, this learning process of pacing. I think it's a good first test for everybody to learn the art of pacing, so that as coaches, we can teach individuals, hey, okay, here's what you did right. And here's where you can get better, and how we're going to use this experience in future workouts to help you be able to pace yourself in a competitive situation where you can't look down at your power meter. You're just going to have to go, in some moments, you're going to need to be able to do that for
Right.
1 minute, and other moments, you're going to have to be able to do it for 10 or 15 or 20 minutes. But you need to learn how to pace yourself for those moments. And so I don't really, in the end, care about the numbers. What I do care about is that the workouts I'm having you do are according to where you're at. And if we do that, then
Right.
that development is going to happen the way we want it to happen. And so if we apply some idealized number and not the real truthful number, we're making a big mistake. And because in the end, the only performance test that matters, the one that's going to validate us and make us feel good, is race results. Like, that's it.
Totally.
If your race results are happening and you're happy with those, you're not going to care anything about your power numbers. If you're executing on race day and having good race experiences, and you feel good about your races themselves, and you see progress, then that's the ultimate performance test. Whatever happens in that race, that's the validation. And I know you've seen this, where racers are not achieving the results that they want, but they have amazing power numbers, and they just are walking
Yeah.
ball of frustration. But then there's lots of other people who don't have incredible power numbers but have great race results. And you're like, well, how does that happen? We're going to get to a later episode where we're talking about mindset and decision making and how important that is in athletic development. But mentally, as you approach these tests, we athletes, we beat ourselves up too much. We're too hard on ourselves. We have crazy, silly, unrealistic expectations of some ideal person that we want ourselves to be, that we hardly ever achieve that, but we have a ridiculous standard we hold ourselves to. And if we just would go easier on ourselves and just say, you know what, today, this is what I could do today. And how can I use this to best help myself for the future? And I mean, one of the little things that I like to do with the athletes that I recommend this, and not many do it, I don't think, is when they do the test, don't have wattage on the main screen of your head unit. Just don't. Have time, maybe, have your heart rate perhaps, because I think I'm more interested in the heart rate number because I'm going to use that more from the training perspective. But to not even have wattage on the screen, because it will play mind tricks on you if you're not where you think you should be. And then just whatever the number is afterward, that's the number. Don't worry about it. It's going to go up. Just trust and have faith that your program that you and the coach are working through is going to have you where you need to be down the road. And so you don't want the performance test to be the ultimate test, which is races. Races is when it matters the most, and don't put performance testing above actual racing and the value it has
Right.
for you. And also how you, I think the key thing you said earlier about whatever that number is, it's, it doesn't make or break you as a person. It doesn't define you. There's more to you than a wattage number. There's more to you than watts per kilo. And the key is, as we're going back to like these numbers, I think for me, what I use these numbers for, if I'm looking at raw power numbers and watts per kilo, I love to give them all those different types of tests to find out, well, is sprinting or the kilo effort, is that really your strength? Or are you more VO2 oriented pursuiter or a time trialist? taking that information and being able to help them understand who they are as an athlete, and then
Mhm.
how to take that and use it in race situations. Like, this is who you are at your best. How can you then take this into race situations and apply it? Here's your strengths. How can you use your strengths against others' weaknesses and not get so caught up in the absolute wattage number or the watts per kilo, though it's important. It's definitely important, but it's not the end all be all. And it's not going to prevent you from getting good race results. And you just have to put it in the proper perspective and don't give it too much value, because it can be an enemy. You can and it be an enemy from within, not coming from elsewhere, you know.
Right. And you can't, there's no quick fix for it either. So I think acceptance is one of the big words with power testing and benchmarking. You just have to accept it for what it is. Um, and like you said, trust the process, because, we haven't really touched on this with, year over year looking at data, but you're going to get better. You're continuing to move in the right direction. So you can expect to improve every year. Um, so if you're not at Chris Froome wattage right now, you're going to be closer next year. And that stream of improvement, you can talk to a lot of these very high level athletes and ask, did you improve every year since you were a junior? And they're going to say yes. That's smart coaching. That's being patient. That's, focusing on race results and giving yourself longevity in the sport by not burning out and having disordered practices in your life that are going to shorten the amount of time you can spend racing your bike. Um, you're just going to improve every year as long as you can accept where you are and trust the process.
Yeah, I think it's a great point about just accepting where you are, because you got to start somewhere. And if you can just start from that spot, not the idealized spot, I think it's key. So, all right, we kind of have that. I think everybody understands like what our mentality and our approach is as coaches and athletes. Oh, but no, let's go back to
Mm-hmm.
you. You did a performance test about what, about 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, and
Yeah, I think so.
just share that experience for you personally. You know what you went through
Sure.
in the moment. I was with you, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just share your experience and then what you did after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so the background is that this is my first FTP test in over 2 years. I had been doing inside testing or using other forms of benchmarking, blood lactate, other things. So, yeah, I got the call that I had to do a FTP test, and so in the build up to that, we took a couple days off. Um, I had a really like fun Christmas break in Tucson, done a lot of training, and then kind of had a couple down weeks where I was getting readjusted to the cold, the winter, come back to work, all those things. And then we go out to do this FTP test. It's about 35 degrees outside. And yeah, I picked Roan Mountain, did my warm up, was not feeling super confident about it. And just hit the gas like it was the December the year before that. And I was doing inside testing, which is a 12-minute test. Um, and yeah, very, very quickly was just having a conversation with myself of like, oh man, I think you went too hard. And it was like, oh yeah, you definitely went too hard. It's like, well, this next 10 minutes is going to be really rough, but like, that's just, you're just gonna have to pay the price. Like, sorry, man. Like, you're just gonna have to be empty and miserable and whatever for the next 10 minutes. And then you're probably gonna have to do this again because you messed it up. So it's funny being on the other side of it where you can like have these objective conversations and that you made the classic mistake you tell other people not to, and you didn't go by feel and you did look at the wattage a little bit early in the effort, right? Um, but I think when I started in the sport, I would have bailed at 10 minutes knowing that it wasn't some world beating power number. Um, but now it's just like, it is what it is, right? You're going to get a 20-minute data point. You're going to go home and, it's not going to be a definition of your threshold. It's just going to be a 20-minute effort. And instead of feeling all like hunky dory about it, you're just going to understand that where you are in the season, you can't go out and do 10 minutes that hard and expect to hold it for another 10 minutes. So it was kind of funny being on the other end of it. I was a little disappointed in the result just because of the like how good the training had been, but it's like in the same way, like I didn't really give it a whole lot of thought beforehand, and the number just was what it was. And even since then, I've had conversations with my coach like, oh yeah, like that was totally worthless. Like you messed it up, it was a weird day. We can extrapolate that your threshold is this and this based on these other efforts you've done. So I think having those data points was really useful for me to kind of argue my case that it was a bad day. And so, yeah, it was interesting, right? Like, I don't know if my rider style, a 20-minute all out effort, is a very good estimation of my FTP either. I have a very long time to exhaustion. So doing a test like that, also kind of plays into different things for me than it would, some of our guys are very good sprinters. So it's always an interesting data point, but yeah, messed it up a little
It's a
bit.
different style. It's a different style, and it's a lot like what we have talked about lately about virtual racing. It's a game. It itself is a
Right.
game, and learning the art of, like you just said, it's a new way of going out to do a performance test that you hadn't really done before, and it is a game. There is a way to be successful at it, and you could, like you said, if you go too hard the first half, you're going to have a struggle that latter half. And I remember telling you as we were finishing up the ride that day, like, hey man, treat it as a good workout. It was a good workout. If you just either
Right.
way treat it
Yeah.
as a good workout and you learn from it, and you're like, all right, now next time, um, maybe how to do it better and more successfully, and the buildup is going to be different to it. So it doesn't matter what level of competitor you are, you can benefit from performance testing. And you're going to be doing performance testing that could vary from coach to coach, because each coach has a different approach to how they're going to maybe apply that, and then use that information. But it doesn't matter if you're a professional like Zach or an amateur like myself, or you're early in your cycling career working with a coach. There's value in performance testing, and don't let it define you, and don't let it discourage you. Use it as another tool to just simply get better, and use that information the right way. That's going to help you grow and get stronger and faster over, like you said earlier, the long haul. It's a benchmark, and you can use this information for next year. And if you stick with your training and you're consistent and um, you're looking long term, then over time those numbers are going to improve. You're going to get better. And in the end, as I said, I really think it's going to help you be a better bike racer, because you're going to understand yourself better, and you're going to be able to pace yourself a little bit more effectively once you get in these race situations. So speaking of race situations, so the performance testing feeds into, all right, it does provide these benchmarks, helps us to, prescribe the proper training zones for you to be in, so that we work with you to get you ready for early season races. All right. When we're talking about early season, and early season being dependent upon where you are living in the country, if you're in Texas, Florida, California, we're talking January. For other parts, it could be February or March, depending upon your winters. But it's early season. What do early season races? How do they help us? Why are they important? And how should we approach them as athletes? If we're coaches, how do we guide athletes? And then also, if you're an athlete, how should we be approaching these early season races?
Right. Yeah. From the athlete's perspective, I think it's especially this year, a lot about just getting out there and going through the motions and having fun, because a lot of us have not even done very many group rides or anything in, a year plus. So uh, getting out there and enjoying it and kind of like shaking off the rust, I think is the most important thing. And, going with no expectation. a lot of people we work with, younger guys who aren't cat ones yet, will go and try and like get some early upgrade points and things like that. I think that's great, but it can also take away from just the sheer fun that you can have in a February race with everybody else being on a very similar kind of suppressed level, um, where it should just be a fun group ride where, you got a number on and it means a little bit more. It's good training. It's going to push you harder than you would normally push yourself at that time of year. Um, and you can go in with some objectives, but the objective shouldn't be to do your all-time best 5-minute power or have this amazing result or things like that. You, again, with the acceptance, you just got to like accept that you're not 100% fit and neither is anybody else. So you're going to have to rely on your tactical prowess, your base fitness, right? So I think a lot of people go into it with a little bit too much expectation, but it should just be fun and good training.
Yeah, racing is training. And I think it's even more important early season to look at your races as, man, I I need some fast group rides early in the year to get myself ready for the real racing. And that's going to happen in say April, May, June. And racing can provide that for you. And go, yeah, as you said, go into it with some, hey, yeah, you don't want to get shelled out the back. But that all goes to the heart of your
Yeah.
consistency and training. But go into it with lower expectations and don't put pressure on yourself. And it's a great time, I think, to practice the basics of your preparation, your pre-race preparation. Your sleep the night before, your nutrition the night before, and your nutrition in the morning. The little things that go into getting, everything you do before you get to the start line, all the little details, getting that process back in order, getting back into a flow so that you go to the start line and you're not stressed out. If you're going to the first race season, it's normal, I think, to have butterflies. Like, you get to the race and you're like a little bit
Sure.
nervous. I think that's normal. Uh, and it's healthy to be a little nervous and have butterflies and anxious. But once they say go, then you got to focus and just keep it into perspective of like, man, this is early season. Nobody should be at their best. And you know what? I've always said, I kind of hope some of my competition is at their best. I hope they're flying because that means
Yeah.
that means good things for me later on the year because I know they're not going to hold that fitness. There's no way. So yeah,
Yeah. Right.
I want some people highly fit and kicking butt. I know they're not going to drop me. They shouldn't drop you, but I think it's just a great opportunity to get a really good fast group ride in, get some speed work in, and then use it as an experience builder and submerge yourself into the experience of, all right, I'm, knocking the rust off, wiping away the cobwebs, and I'm dialing in my processes and my mindset of what it feels like to get to the start line, and then the racing happens. Now, okay, let's put ourselves in the race. What in these early season races, what are some things to really focus on and think about as you're actually doing it?
Mhm. Well, I think it goes back to execution, like you were talking about. If you can't get to the start line fully topped up and with both gloves and some sunglasses on and number pin the right way around, then this is your one chance where that's kind of halfway acceptable, right? And in the same way, practice your course recon abilities, whether it's you can actually get out there and pre-ride it, or use the power of the internet and do all the things necessary where you have a really good idea of what the course is going to look like, where you think the moves are going to go, who the people are, who you should follow. All those things are very important. And in the early season racing, things happen much slower. So it's going to give you a good idea of, are your estimations, are your calculations correct? And you can actually adjust. Where in May, June, July, if you guess wrong or you're not in the right spot, it's over for you. So yeah, I think the early season, just practicing that execution, remembering how to move through a pack front to back, not trying to be in the top 5 wheels the whole race, practicing letting things go as an individual rider, especially, and understanding when you have to react to it. I think is really important. That's a lost skill on Zwift. Nobody wants to miss out on Zwift. You can see how many like watts they're doing per kilo speed, 2 second gap thing on the side of the screen. So that like sensation, I think everybody's got to get back. So um, yeah, I'm very big on course recon and understanding your competition. And these early season races are a great way to do that because nobody's bringing 8 guys who are flying to anything right now, you know? Um, so yeah, I think the preparation side is super important. Don't go there and just show up and race. I think that's kind of a waste of your entry fee. You could just go to a group ride or just smash yourself on Zwift. Um, but yeah, it's a good test of just all your skills up to that point.
Yeah, information is power. I think it is. You want to go in there armed with a knowledge of the course and of the competition, and that's just going to help you to execute better when you're out there. I think the key word you said is with a P, preparation. I got two other words that are in alignment with that begin with P as well, and you alluded to it a second ago, and that's patience. Having patience
Hmm.
in these races, because patience will be key throughout your career as a cyclist, knowing when to uh, um, knowing when to attack, knowing when to bridge, knowing when to just set back and put pressure on other athletes to do this work for you. Patience in those early season races is important. And then the other P to focus on, and this is something I talk about with our athletes uh, and emphasize, is it's a great time to work on positioning. Your positioning in a pack, how to move up in a pack, paying attention to the flow of what is going on up the road, and your position in relation to what is happening up the road. And so, preparation, patience, and positioning, that right there, when that can give you a lot to work on and think about, and attempt to execute on to help you be better. Because you and I were talking before this episode about how, man, you can be brute strong. You could be the strongest, the fastest. And if at the higher you go, if you're just simply relying on that to have success, but you're not uh, looking at all these other areas and then getting better in all those other areas, sooner or later you realize everyone around you is as strong or stronger than you are. And you're only going to go so far with that brute strength. You better had use your mind and all these other tools available to you to be successful. So I think patience, exhibiting patience, looking closely at your competition, sizing them up, and working on your positioning, and improving upon that, which is an art, you know, all throughout your career as a cyclist. And the better you are at positioning, it can save a tremendous amount of energy all throughout a race, so that when you get down to those critical moments, the final 5 laps of a crit or the final 10K of a road race, you have something to give. Because if you've been inefficient in your positioning all throughout the race, man, you just have, you've shot yourself in the foot.
Totally. Yeah, and I think one of the P's that you shouldn't pay attention to is placing,
Mm.
because uh, whenever I send athletes to these early season races, I want them to bully the people that they're racing against. I want them to be exhausted at the end of the race. Um, and so part of that is it gives them so many more opportunities to be involved in things, those race winning scenarios, trying to make the break, bridging, all that stuff, that takes practice. It is an art. Uh, but the other part of that is the performance testing stuff that we don't get from a 20-minute power standpoint is their metabolic efficiency, their ability to handle strong surges over and over, that repeatability, that time to exhaustion. If they do make the all-day breakaway, are they cramping at the end, or are they just like smiling ear to ear because they know they got everybody in that move? So Um, I think one of the biggest benefits for February and March racing is just to go out there and expend energy, right? You don't want to be pulling the pack around. You want to be greedy with it, but you want to be involved as much as possible.
Hmm.
Um, and that also gives you a chance to test your preparation, your understanding of the course, right? So if you identify a place that's good to attack and nobody's used it yet, you should use it. You should see if it's actually good or if everybody's avoiding it for a reason. So yeah, I'm with you on the three Ps. I just hate to see people go to those races and race for points and placing, because it's just kind of a waste of time. There's 5-6 months out of the year that you do that, and none of them are February and March,
And
unless it's a
I think the
classic year
key,
and maybe March. Yeah.
yeah, I think the key there is realizing, hey man, the stakes are low right now. The stakes are low. So
Mhm.
you can gamble. When the stakes are low, you can gamble and you can take risk. You can put yourself in uncomfortable situations in these race situations to say, you know what, I'm going to try to create a breakaway today, or I'm going to try to put myself in a breakaway, or I'm going to at least try to stay in the top 5 riders all day. Have some sort of goal going into it, but I agree with you. Don't make it, I got to win or I've got to get top 5 because I've got to get upgrade points. If you race smartly, strategically, push yourself, you'll be in some really wonderful situations, and not trying to, again, attack, your way into everything that's happening, which is just going to compromise you. So I think going into it with a goal of, here's what I would like to achieve and learn and grow from, not be, well, I want to get top 10. Like, well, everybody wants to get top 10, or yeah, a handful of people are going to go
Yeah.
there with this. They don't even go with the expectation of winning. They just know it's a possibility. But what can I learn from and grow from? And what sort of scenarios do I need to put myself into that's going to be uncomfortable? What has been comfortable to me in the past? What would be really uncomfortable to me in this moment that's going to really challenge and stress me? And you don't want it to be, oh, I'm getting dropped off the back of the field and I'm riding solo for a lap or 10K or 20K. You want it to be in competitive situations that you're stretching yourself, where you're like, oh gosh, I don't know if I can hang on. I don't know if I can do this. And the only way to find out is to try and to do it. And that's what those early season races can do for you when the stakes are low. The upside is high. You can take some real big gambles that's within your abilities, but maybe 5% above that, 10% above that, that's going to challenge you. That can be a down payment on something really wonderful in the middle of summer, because you don't want to wait until the middle of the summer to be trying these things when the stakes are higher and
Right.
the risk is like, the downside is really low. Like, it could really backfire and not work out well for you. But these early season races are great opportunities to stretch yourself and learn those things about yourself, and then come back and say, okay, well, just raced, had a full weekend. You raced a few weeks ago down in Florida, and I know that you learned a lot
I
from that,
did.
because those races were after this test that you were talking about you did, which helped boost your morale a
Right.
bit, helped gave you a better confidence in where you're at in your training, because you went to a race. Uh, and so, you go race. And for you in particular, like, how did that, going from the test that you did a couple weeks before it, you go race, how did that then, how has it helped, and how did it help shape your perspective once you got back from a full weekend of racing?
Right. Yeah. I think it's a unique opportunity going to a race like that, especially this year. Good weather, really good competition, and it allowed me to kind of verify that all the work I had been doing is still there as fitness. It's not there as fastness or speed or top end. Um, but I remember thinking in the road race, man, I wish this was 40 miles longer. It was just like super fun, hard effort, but I could have done it all day. But could I win a 3-up sprint? No, sure couldn't. But that's okay. That is early February racing. And Just like I was talking about with the course recon and things like that. I did my homework and thought it was one thing and it was totally something else. Wind direction changed 10 minutes before we went off the start. So my good headwind, crosswind, tailwind analysis was gone. There were some people from California that I was not expecting who were super strong and who are used to being very fast in February. Same thing with some of the guys down in Miami who have been racing for a month. So you can only go in with a plan and take it as far as the start line before it's going to change on you. And being down there alone is just so fantastic. I think that being with your teammates and having that opportunity to like coordinate everything is very powerful. But a lot of people need to go race by themselves because it offers you a unique perspective, and it handcuffs you in a way, right? You can't follow every move. You're not going to be in every move. But you also don't really have to chase. You can kind of just like flow and move and pay attention and observe things without the obligation to your team, or kind of in the back of your head that potential repercussion if you miss out or you make a mistake or whatever of it impacting your teammates. So that would be one of my other points, I think, on early season racing is like, don't invite everybody. And like, go alone, go with one other person, make it as much of a learning opportunity as you possibly can. One thing that I found out very quickly is like my packing and organization and stuff is very rusty. My stuff was everywhere. It slowed me down. It hampered my warm up after the road race, beginning the time trial. Like, I'm typically kind of a messy person, but there's at least normally some order to the chaos where like it'll be a pile, but the pile makes sense. And
To you,
there
it
was no
makes
sense to the
sense to
pile
you.
that weekend. So yeah, right. It's like the Dewey Decimal System, but it's all emojis, right? It's like nobody understands it except the person who created it. So
I think you make
but
a
yeah, I
great
think
point.
there's so much to gain, and the post race report, I think, is so powerful in a situation like that, because you look at your data and you're like, yes, I do have fitness. All this training's worth it, and you can list all the things that you did right, did wrong. It gives you a springboard for conversation where you can take that and run with it for another 6 weeks of these kind of low expectation races and really make a weakness into a strength, or at least make a weakness into something you're comfortable with addressing and kind of working around. And if you do that every year for 5 years, I mean, man, you're gonna be on a totally different level.
Hmm. Well, you're right about there being a certain level of freedom when you go to a race and you don't have teammates with you. Uh, to then you have to approach it completely different, and uh, it can be a fun experience, and if done the right way. But then also if you're going with a handful of teammates, that at the same time, there's ways to go about doing that the right way and the wrong way. And so you don't want to just go in with some sort of uh, arrogance or just thought that, yeah, we're going to go and exert our will. We're going to go and and just try to detonate the whole thing, because that's not going to be
Right.
healthy for the team either, because again, back to your point, it's an early season race. Strength and fitness isn't where it's going to be later on. It's a great opportunity to just stretch, but learn and grow as you stretch, and not approach it as if it was a national championship, because it's not. The stakes are low. So
Right.
uh, we have the race, and I think there's one thing, early season stuff that I see. If there's one thing that a mistake that could get made that you want to try and avoid as an athlete, and especially coaches, this is something we have to sort of be on guard for, and maybe even defend against, is, again, athletes, we want to go and perform at our best every time, no matter what time of year it is. Then we go and maybe it doesn't work out the way we want, or we don't finish that well at the very end, or as well as we would like. We come back and we start second guessing our progression, our plan, and then we want to just make, all of a sudden in our head we're like, well, I need to add this, or I need to add that. And as a coach, you have to be real careful, because listen, you're not your best sprint, your best 3 minute, your best 5 minute. It's not going to be there right now. It's going to come later on. The key thing I think is that were you in position? Did you just have these opportunities? Were you there? That you didn't capitalize on it at the very end or execute at your best. That's not as important. What's important is, were you there? If you're there, all right, now we can work with that. And to not come back from a race weekend when it went well, if you're being objective with how it actually went, when it actually went well, don't come back and be upset because you didn't get third instead of, because you got eighth, or you didn't win, but you still were on the podium. Don't come back and like, oh, I've got to work on my top end, or I've got to, I was missing this and that. Like, then don't just totally revamp your training program, because obviously if you're in some really good, challenging situations and you're having a fun race experience, something's working. What you've been doing up to that point is getting you in that position. It's working. And then the goal would be you come back and you're like, well, to your point earlier, did you have fun? Number one, yes or no? Simple question. If you had fun, like, all right, man, that's what it's all about. Let's have fun. All right. What did you learn? What did you learn? Did you learn anything about yourself or about racing or about your competition? That's an element that a lot of people forget about. We're also self-absorbed about my power numbers, my result, my this or that. What did you learn about the competition? Where are they at in their ability right now? Are they going hot? Are they going lukewarm or cold? Where are they at? Learning the competition, I think, is as important as anything that you do the higher you go. Because if you don't know who your competition is, how are you going to play your strengths off of their strengths and their weaknesses? So just don't come back and go
funny
ahead.
Little anecdote though.
Okay.
One of the guys who beat me in the road race, Chaz Thurman, super strong guy out of California. He's actually a YouTuber also. And I can't remember. I think I actually subscribed to him for a while. But he posted a video a couple weeks before the Swamp Classic that was like, check out my VO2 workout. And I was like, I didn't know it when I raced him, but I was like, uh-oh, Chaz, like, you better go back in a base build, my man, because it's early,
Yeah.
And for reference, I haven't done a threshold workout yet. So
Yeah.
that's a very good point about where your competition is right now. So I just thought that was, funny, because everybody just give me some flack for losing a sprint against two really, really good sprinters.
Yeah. I mean,
one of which
again,
has done some VO2 workouts.
and again, it's just about getting a really good knowledge base and perspective of who you're competing against. You should have some sort of insight into who you're competing against, and cataloging that information over the course of time. What you can normally expect out of someone in the early season versus middle of season, late season. I think that's an important part of the competitive experience, no matter what sport you're playing or what level you're playing. That you can again, the goal is race results. That's the ultimate performance test. How can you improve those race results? Well, better understanding your competition is a key component with that. It's not just about you, it's about how you are competing against other people, all of whom you can't control. You can only control yourself. You cannot control the competition. You can influence them, but you cannot control them. So, but understanding them better will help you compete against them better head to head. So yeah, early season races are incredibly valuable if you keep them into perspective and not give them too much weight. Realize, hey, I can gamble, I can take some risks, I can learn a lot. If I get a great result and I do well, hey man, great. If I don't, it's not the end of the world. I can come back and say, all right, what did I learn? And grow from that, get better with that. Talk with your coach, talk with experienced people. Hey, here's something for people who are coming up into the sport who, you and I, we go to races, you're at the front end of the spear in a Pro 1-2 race. And if I go, say in a master's race, it's kind of the same thing for me in any sort of master's race. But for these athletes, coming into the sport or just in those or early to middle stage of their development, one of the things I think they could do to accelerate their growth is, befriend, become friends with these other competitors, maybe who have more experience at you or are doing well in your category, or maybe they're racing well in the category above you. Get to be friends with them, get to know them, ask them questions, go talk to the people who had a good day and ask them, hey man, how did you do that? What worked for you today? How did you pull that off? And in fact, do that all year round. Go up and, one, if they're in your race, congratulate them. I think there's something, I know your background and my background, we're accustomed to after the game is over, you shake hands. You shake hands and you're like, good game, man, good game. But in our case in cycling, there's a little bit of that, but I coach our athletes to go up if you even if you won, but especially if you got beat, go up and congratulate the person that won. And depending upon where you are in your own development, a good question would be like, man, how did you do that? Like, yeah, cyclists, when you ask them a question like that, they're not going to shut up. They're going to tell you the story of what they did or what they experienced. So yeah, ask people questions like, man, that was awesome. Good for you. How did you do that today? And you can learn a lot. Like, oh, well, to your point about not like I attacked at this point, or, I was, this is the tactic or strategy or what I actually did. And you can learn from the success of other people and apply it yourself. You don't have to figure it out all by yourself through frustrating experiences. You can learn from the experience of other people who are having success. And I think as an athlete, that can be, that can just help you get to where you want to go faster.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the other part of that, if you are kind of working your way up through a category, see the front of the race, participate in the things that the people who win the race are participating in. I think that's very important. I think one of the best examples of this is the USA Crits. There are people who show up to USA Crits who are talented cyclists who will not see the front of a race for a year. So you have to accept that maybe there's a cost to that you're not going to finish if you use the effort to see the front. But in that case, it's an investment in your future. You have to, like, it goes beyond the early season, mid-season thing. But if you're working through a category, you have to see the front. You got to know what's going on. You got to know what it takes to be there. Or it doesn't matter what your fitness is, because you don't understand how that race is going to work at any point. So yeah, ask questions, befriend. I have some fantastic people who I've befriended coming up. Mid-Atlantic is a bunch of bike geeks. They all love to talk, thankfully. And they gave me one of my pivotal moments in the sport. After a race, I had two friends come up to me and say, hey man, you really need to work on your bike handling skills or you're just not going to get any better. And like, that came from me asking them questions in previous races, or, discussing tactics, being friendly, just saying, hey, before the race, being excited to see them, whatever it is. But if you're not having those conversations now, you need to start. They don't even have to be the world beater in your race. It can be someone who you sat next to, or you were a breakaway buddy with, or whatever it is, but those connections are very valuable, and it's how you progress. Because you're not going to be able to see what you're actually doing some of the time. You need that third person view and somebody to say, hey, like every time you take a left-hand turn, it's bad. It's like terrible, but your right-hand turns are fine. You just, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
You can't tell it yourself. But those conversations are worth their weight in gold.
Accountability, it's all about accountability. And you got to get to a point as an athlete where you're okay with your competition helping to hold you accountable, and just saying, hey man, that's not a good way to do it, especially in our sport where safety is a top priority for all of us. We want to be safe. It's like, yeah, we want to race and and beat up on each other, competitively speaking, but we want to do it safely. And so sharing that knowledge with someone who is not your teammate is as important as sharing it with your teammates. And you should especially help your teammates grow through this sport and help teach them, especially if you're someone who's been around for a while, to share that knowledge and do so in a constructive way. You know, you're not berating them and making them feel worse about themselves, but you're just saying, hey man, here's a little thing for you to just get better. This is going to make you better if you do this. It's going to make you better. It's going to help the race pack be in a safer situation. And, you know, be the kind of athlete who is open to and receptive to someone who has knowledge, experience, who will just, hey, you know, here's a tip, and accept it. Just, and say thank you. You know, don't get defensive when someone tries to help correct you, to help you be better as an athlete. Don't be defensive. Just be open to that information. I think that's a critical thing for everyone in their development as a person, beyond being an athlete, is just be receptive to people who are trying to help you be better. And you know when someone's coming at you with a dagger and they're angry and they're trying to beat up on you just because they want to beat up on you. But when they're coming to you with some genuine sincerity to help you get better, then accept it. You know, they wouldn't be saying it if it wasn't important. And I think it's especially true if they are your teammates. Like, don't let something like that slide.
Yep.
You want to be successful, so share that insight with your teammates, because you should want that for yourself. If you're making a mistake that's costing the team or it's unsafe, then you should want for someone to tap you on the shoulder and say, hey man, don't do that. You know, this is what happened. Because a lot of times, to your point, we don't know we're doing it. And also, we don't have eyes in the back of our head. So we don't know what we did, what we caused, what happens behind us. And so having that, those people in our life to come up and tap us on the shoulder and say, hey man, I've got a better way for you, I think is really important. So, all right, man. I don't know. I feel like we've covered quite a bit on these two things: performance testing, why and how it's valuable and important, sort of attitude, mentality you take with it, early season races, you know, what you can take away. We could probably talk for another 3 or 4 hours about these two things, but we wanted to have a discussion where we just share some different perspective about it. You know, one of our next topics we really want to get into is our athletic and physical development as athletes, as cyclists specifically. And you and I can bring our background, our lacrosse and baseball backgrounds into this. We want to dive into just the mindset that it takes to be successful at the highest levels, and then also how decision making itself becomes more and more important. That's going to be its own topic of discussion coming up, and I think we'll probably try and maybe get 1 or 2 other voices involved in that discussion over time, which is a really big one, I think. And so we want to help people improve upon their mindset, because it's a topic we as coaches who work with athletes every single day in person, mindset is everything. Because if we're just out here doing all this work, the work itself is not enough if our minds are not in the right place, and we're not also you know, having mental exercises, mental workouts, and becoming better decision makers. Then all that work could be for nothing if our minds are not in a healthy place and we make bad decisions. No amount of strength is going to overcome those two things.
Great. Definitely agree.
Yep.
Can't wait to unpack that one.
Yep. That's going to be a good one. All right, man. Zach, another good episode in the books. All right. Appreciate everybody listening. And until next time, share our episodes with your friends. Go to the reviews in your favorite podcast platform. Go to YouTube. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. Spread the word. We've really been enjoying the feedback we're getting from people randomly, just telling us how much they enjoy our conversations. And we've got some more voices that we're going to pull into these conversations as well, and these different topics that interest us. as coaches and as athletes. And so, yeah, really appreciate all the feedback that you're giving. And if you got questions, topic ideas for us to cover, hey, send them our way. We're pretty easy to find on all the social medias. Just look us up, send us a message. All right, Zach, that's it.
See y'all later.